Alright, so we're going to be doing Nightcrawler here. We're using the same basic Z tool from Cube Brush that I used for the other ones. And the first thing I want to do is just make the major changes that need to be done for Nightcrawler, which is basically the fingers and the toes. So let's start with the fingers here. Let's go to Shift F so I can see my poly frame. You can see on this model the fingers already have polygroups for them. So I'm going to Control Shift, hold down Control and Shift and isolate the polygroups that I want to work with here, these guys. Control Shift Tap and drag. Let's just go here to auto group, and now I just need to basically I want the two index fingers to be the same polygroup. Now you could do mirror and weld for this. I'm just not going to. So now I have them like that. I'm going to do the same things here for these the other two fingers because I want to make sure that they're the same. So I go here to auto group. Now these are, again, it's the pop-up menu here, but it's under your polygroups menu over here. And now I'm just going to isolate these two, make them one polygroup. Make them one polygroup. All right, and now what I want to do is I want to start basically kind of sewing these things together. So what I'm going to do is first let's just hide that because I don't want to see that for now, and let's do some adjustments here. So I'm going to Control Shift Tap on the index and the middle finger here, and I'm going to turn on double side so I can see this. I actually don't want to have these little in-betweens here, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to hide all the fingers and just get rid of all these in-betweens. So let's go here to B and then Z for Z modeler. I'm going to hover over a poly, and I'm going to make sure it's set to delete a single poly. I'm just going to start deleting the ones that I don't want, because all these guys are going to get in the way. Actually, you know what? Let's undo back because I do want to keep these the separators between the two fingers here. Okay, now these diamonds are going to be a problem, so let's get rid of those. They're going to be a problem because they just, you know, it's that extra point there's just going to cause some issues, and we don't need it. So now before I do anything else, I want to make sure I don't delete anything by mistake. So I'm going to hover over a face and change this back to, you know, extrude or whatever, or do nothing. I'm just going to do nothing for now. Now I want to just sew these points together. So hover over a point, stitch to midpoint, stitch, stitch, stitch. That way we, you know, again, we don't need to worry about that weirdness that you sometimes get in between fingers. Trying to stitch these two together here. Come on, guys. There you go. Okay. So now we have that. Control Shift Tap to bring everything back. And we have some openings here, but we don't care because we're going to end up sewing these together. So let's do that. Let's Control Shift Tap on these two fingers, isolate, and then invert that. And what I want to do is I'm going to sew these two together. So I need to have the index and the middle finger kind of similar. So the first thing I'm going to do is isolate the index finger, mask it out, then Control Shift Tap to bring everything back. And now I just want to isolate these two. So basically I want the index finger masked and the middle finger not masked, and I'll invert that mask. So now I just have the index finger. I have my move tool. Okay, I'll hold down Alt and just tap to put it here. I need this to be roughly the same position as the middle finger. So I'm going to kind of hit Y, and it's going to give me my transpose tool, which I can then just drag out and just extend a little bit. And I can kind of, you know, I can adjust the position of this a little bit if I need to. That way, they're a little bit more closely connected. Now let's, you know, clear our mask. Let's Control Shift Tap to bring everything back because I do need to kind of see what I'm doing here. Got a little bit wonky there because of the moving, which is fine. We're just going to touch that a little bit with the smooth brush. And now let's Control Shift Tap on. Actually, let's just hide the stuff we don't want. The whole lower body just gets in the way. So now what I want to do is I'm going to get rid of these inner faces here. We'll turn off the floor here. Hit Z Modeler again. Hold down Alt. I'm just going to just. I gotta make sure it's set to something. Let's go to delete polygroup all. I'm going to make this into a polygroup by holding the Alt key and just basically painting the faces I want to get rid of, and just delete them. Okay, and do the same thing on this side, and just get rid of those. Now we could just bridge these, or we could sew them together, right? So I'm just going to sew them, I think. So let's go here and stitch 2 points. I'm just going to stitch these two together. I'm going to pause it and just do them all. Okay, so as you can see, I went through and I did it for both of them. Just sewed them together again. Cut out the faces in between, sewed them together. He's got toes that are kind of similar in that regard, right? So he's got basically two toes. So let's go ahead and do that. Control Shift click on the 2 feet and then just invert that. So basically I want to turn this into something I can kind of turn into a bunch of toes. So let's just go ahead and I'm going to basically hide those faces here. Control W to make this all one group. And now I'm going to basically get rid of these entirely. Okay, I'm going to get rid of them, delete hidden. And now let's close this up. So let's go here to my edge and let's go to bridge and let's just click and click. We're going to start bridging this together. Okay, so I just bridge this together here, as you can see. Really straightforward. I'm just going to hold down Alt and just grab these guys and let's extrude polygroup all and just extrude this out. Don't really care how it looks. I just need to have something there. Let's isolate this polygroup here and mask it out and then invert that mask. And let's just pop this here and just move it out. Again, I don't really care how it looks at the moment. I just want to have something there. Now I'm just going to come here with my Z modeler. I'm going to insert a couple little edge loops here just to kind of, you know, give it some capacity to move around. Now I'm going to extrude this group out as well. And again, I'm going to say this again. I don't care how it looks. I just need them to be there at this point. Right? Sculpting will help, which is what we're going to be doing later on. I'm just going to come in here and just insert edge loop right around these parts here, which shouldn't be a problem because I'll just go right around the feet, right? I can just mask out this part, invert it, do a quick polish by features, and then just do a quick smooth. And again, that'll get us roughly the toes that we need, or at the very least the starting point for the toes that we need. He's got one coming out the back of his foot as well, so let's go ahead and do that. This is pretty straightforward. Z modeler, I'm just going to kind of pretty much just grab these faces here. I'm going to probably grab these as well. Now I'm going to extrude this polygroup out. Look how ridiculous it looks. It's okay. I'm going to isolate this and hide these. Control W, and now let's mask it out. Control Shift Tap to bring everything back. Invert that mask, center it. I'm going to turn on local sim so I can scale this down. I'm going to scale this down like this. Right, just like that. Insert an edge loop or two, and then big old brush with a smooth. Right, and then we can go from there. So again, really quickly, I just wanted to kind of rough out the anatomical differences between that base mesh and Nightcrawler. Okay, next we're going to start actually, like, you know, blocking out the actual parts of them. Okay, so the cool thing about Nightcrawler is there's not much to this character's shape that needs a whole lot of changing. Not a whole lot, right? Because he's already kind of thin, kind of lanky. So basically, I'm just going to get my move brush and maybe do a few little adjustments here, just to kind of make him a little bit more Nightcrawler-y. And what I'm going to do probably for him is, again, I kind of like the angular feel to sculpting, so I'm going to kind of like use some edges that might not be there in, you know, in the model, but I kind of like to make him feel a little bit more like he's been drawn. So I kind of like to use some corners and stuff like that. So you'll see as I do this, I might end up kind of like going more sharp edged in some cases, but you're not gonna notice it yet. I'm just kind of like throwing it out there. So again, for the body, not a whole lot to worry about at this point, because again, a lot of what we're going to be doing here is going to happen when he's posed, because that's how you're going to know how the muscles are supposed to look once he's in a position where the muscles have to do stuff. But the face has a very Jokery feel in my mind, so I want to kind of like get him that look. I'm going to kind of thin out the neck a little bit. And he's got, again, he's very Jokery. He's got kind of a very, I thought, an angular face. So I'm going to kind of like push this in. He's got eyes that are part of this subtool, so I'm just going to Control Shift click on these, invert this, and split hidden. I'll probably end up swapping them out for something else later on, but for now, let's just go here to like a basic material, and I was going to kind of give him some colors here, and go here, and again for him, I'm just going to go with like a gray for now, just so I can kind of start getting a feel for this, right? But he's got kind of an angular face, I'm going to kind of give him a little bit of a grin. So to kind of separate the upper and lower lips, I'm just going to use polygroups here. So if I hit Shift F, you can see the upper and lower lip are already kind of polygrouped together, but I'm going to try to ignore that. I'm going to hold down Control and Shift and go to my selection lasso, and I'm going to kind of just lasso out part of the lower lip right here. Control Shift Tap and drag, hit Control W to make that its own polygroup. So now if I isolate this, I should be able to Control Shift X and just kind of increase this a little bit at a time. I'm going to kind of like just increase a little bit to here, Control W and Control Shift X, and just increase a little bit more. Okay, hide some of these so I can kind of build it out a little bit at a time. Control W, Control Shift X. And you can see here how it's kind of moving me further in. Now the Move Topological brush can help. It just wasn't really working for me at the time. So I'm going to Control W again. I'm going to move this part down because this is pretty much the inside of the mouth at this point. And I just want to kind of move this down. All right. You can see that's kind of where we are right now. Control Shift Tap on the red upper lip. You can see again, like it's weirdly kind of like I'm going to ignore this mouth bag here because this seems like it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I'm just going to push this up here. And again, it doesn't matter a whole lot what it looks like inside here because it's going to be closed off by the teeth anyway. But I just want to get that upper and lower lip separated here, and now we have it roughly separated. So I can just mask out one if I need to, and just kind of like get that lower jaw down a little bit here, a little smooth, but let's kind of get that. Again, when you want to get that grin, you want to, in my mind anyway, it makes sense to do it like from a 3/4 angle, because that way you kind of get the nice wrap around the face, and you get the smile lines almost like almost for free. So we're going to get that little up here. I believe he's got pointy ears. He's kind of like, you know, devilly in that sense. Kind of push that neck in there, but bring it down here. Kind of get him some traps, I think. And now we're going to kind of going to adjust that grin. And the grin's going to look a lot better, of course, once he actually has lips and also once he actually has teeth. But for now, I want to mask out this. I'm actually going to mask out the lower jaw here. And then invert that, and then go to my move tool. I'm just going to rotate that down a little bit. You know, something weird happened there. I guess I wasn't exactly on the side view, so it was kind of symmetry was causing a problem. This Control Tap to invert to kind of to blur that mask a little bit. I'm going to bring that down like that, and I actually want to kind of get him a little wide. Right here. So I'm going to kind of use Damp Standard to kind of carve in a little bit here, just to kind of, you know, what's that word? Exaggerate that a little bit. Going to bring the lower eyelids, such as they are. There's not really eyelids yet, but okay. So I think that'll work. And let's just bring in a cylinder for some teeth, just for now. So let's just insert a cylinder, and I'm just going to scale this down. And again, this is a stand-in for the teeth. We'll give him actual teeth because you think he's got like some pointy teeth. Again, like kind of like, you know, almost devilish. So, but for now, I just want to have something there to kind of like give me a visual cue as to where the lips need to essentially stop. So I'm going to do something like this, and then I'm going to go here to my gear and go to taper. I'm going to turn this little white arrow down so it doesn't get any weird bendy stuff. Like, because again, when this is out, it kind of gets like kind of does that little bowy thing happening. I don't really want that, so I want to kind of come out like this, a little bit more like wider near the top, right? I'm just going to scale this down and just bring this in. All right, so this is basically where the teeth are going to go, and now we're going to start actually, like, you know, doing stuff. So much of this is going to happen when he's posed, but now I just want to block in all the major stuff. So the next thing I have to block in is this little shoulder part, and then we'll get his tail, and we'll do his hair, and then we'll get him posed. So we have them blocked out roughly, and now I want to kind of like focus on getting the major parts, which again is mostly just this little vest thing. I'm just going to come here really quickly and just, again, this is how, for my own benefit, I like to have a feeling for what's what. So I'm just going to come here and just start throwing in some colors so we kind of know where things are. Again, I have polygroups on here, so I'm going to use that to my advantage and just kind of isolate these things so I can kind of throw some color on them. So I'm going to kind of fill this with white, and then right about like here, I'm going to change that to red. And again, this is just for the sake of, I don't know, making me feel like I'm making progress. So let's just fill that with red, and then we're going to, actually no, we're going to fill it with black again. Sorry, my bad. I'm going to just hide some of these. Let's just go back to my selection lasso here so I can actually get this to do what it's supposed to do. Something like that. Let's go to red. Fill, and then we're going to just get rid of some of these again, go back to white, fill, there you go, and then just going to fill that with white as well. Alright, so again, this is roughly what I want, and now we can start looking at this little vest part. So to make the vest part, first of all, hit save, and I'm going to come over here and duplicate the whole male body, because I want to make this basically from that body. So I'm going to go to solo mode, and let's isolate the parts that I want. So control, again, you can use this with the select lasso, or just kind of get rid of what you don't want. I'm just going to kind of use my polygroups here just to get rid of the stuff I know I don't care about. For example, the head, let's get rid of it. So like the head, I can just get rid of everything in this little area here. Obviously, I don't care about the arms for this, and I'm trying to get a nice clean line for no reason other than my own obsessive compulsiveness. And let's just kind of get rid of this stuff. Yoop, yoop, and then yoop. All right. There you go. That's all I need. So delete hidden, Control W, make it all one polygroup, and now all I want to do is just kind of get a nice clean line here. So again, let's actually get rid of the actual legs as well, because I mean, it's just going to get on my nerves. So Control Shift S, we'll get rid of that. Let's keep these faces that we might need those for his little onesie that we have. He's got here. Oh, come on now. I cannot get that. There we go. Okay. Beautiful. Delete hidden again. All right, so now let's go to our slice curve. Now I'm going to turn off symmetry because I only need to have it on one side. I'm going to mirror it over, right? So I'm just going to Control and Shift, and then just let go of Control and Shift, because now I can just move it around. And as I come up here, I can just go to tap with the Alt key, and then tap with the Alt key again, and do however I want, kind of like this. Go here to mirror and weld, and now I got what I want there as well. I do want to get rid of this little V-shaped thing here, and for that I'm going to go back to my, what is going on here? Wow, that's interesting. Well, it's okay, but I want to get rid of this middle part here. So let's go back to my selection lasso here, and that way I can Control and Shift and just get rid of, I'm doing it from an angle so it doesn't go through the back, you understand? And maybe I'll get rid of this one as well. All right, and I'll get rid of these two guys as well here. I want this to kind of like widen out a little bit. Apparently symmetry is not on right now. What the heck? There we go. Something like that. Beautiful, fantastic. I love it. Maybe I'll get rid of these two as well. All right, beautiful. Wait, what did I just get rid of? Yeah. So let's go here and delete hidden. Now I'm going to mask out this little point, and that's pretty much it. And now I'm just going to go to polish by features and polish that. And you can see here how it kind of gives us a nice clean-ish edge here, right? And Control Shift tap to get rid of, to isolate that part, get rid of the other parts I don't want. Delete hidden. Now I do want to make sure underneath here it's not too thin, because it's really easy for that to kind of like vanish into nothing. So I'm just going to kind of like almost exaggerate how far apart I want this to be just for now, because this is going to be a little bit of a weird thing. This is not good topology, obviously. If I try to remesh this right now, if I go to Z remesher, say keep same number of points, it might work okay, but you might get some weird stuff as well. So actually that's not terrible, but sometimes you need to kind of play around with Z remesher to get what you want. This is a little bit odd, so if I remesh one more time, maybe I'll get luckier. And again, decent here, not so great here. I don't know that it matters. There's not a whole lot going on back there, but you know, sometimes you need to kind of adjust that. So let's just try one more time, see if what happens. Okay, so that's actually better. at least it feels better. This could be a nicer thing here, but again, this is one of those things where maybe I want to divide this, delete lower, and then remesh again with same, and maybe I'll get a cleaner flow. And sometimes that actually works pretty well. Like this, for example, I can just stitch together at this point. So let's go to my Z Modeler brush and stitch these 2 points, and a light little smooth here. And again, because this is the back, and because not a lot is happening to this in this area in terms of like, you know, deformation, you can get away with this. You can also just remesh it or just draw some edges across here. Also would be just fine. But now let's get out of polyframe mode, and it's a little small, obviously, because we polished it. So I'm gonna go here to inflate under deformation tab, and just inflate a little bit. I don't want to go too crazy with that. I'm just going to go right about there, and then go to my move brush and kind of pull this out a little bit here. And again, I might need to make some adjustments, obviously, to the width of it and all that kind of stuff, which is fine. But we have roughly what I want. Now I can just mask out this inner part, Control Tap to blur it a little bit, and kind of like start messing with this a touch. I'm going to turn, yeah, double-sided is still on, so we can see what's happening. There is no thickness to this right now, right? So you want to kind of keep that in mind, because I am going to give it some thickness in a moment. I want to just adjust the overall silhouette or outline of this first. Invert that, maybe kind of pull this in a little bit here, because it gets a little bit wider than it should be. So something like this, right? So again, really quickly, you can get a decent look. At least to start with here, okay? And again, a little bit of a weird thing happening here. So what I'm going to do is let's go here to masking. I'm going to go here to mask by border. So it's going to mask the border off a little bit, and I can either kind of inflate this and smooth it, or invert this and maybe even deflate that a touch to kind of bring it down, or even smooth it, right? I should have kind of like polished by features and kind of polish that off a little bit. So just different things you can do to make the edges line up, right? Now again, part of the reason that this is happening is because ZBrush does not like, you know, one-sided things, doesn't like open edges. So let's do a little bit of extrude here. Let's just see a tiny bit of a polish here just to kind of clean it up. So again, I can extrude the whole thing out, but I actually want to push it in instead. So I'm going to go to my Z Modeler brush, extrude polygroup all. I'm going to turn off double so you can see what happens, right? If I extrude this in, it turns inside out, which obviously is not what I want. I don't care if it interpenetrates here, because who's going to see it? But I do want this to kind of be inward. And now I come down here and just hit flip. And again, this is under geometry, modify topology. You'll see, where is it? Oh, sorry, and not modify topology, under display properties, and just choose flip, right? That's where these little buttons came from. All right, so now I have this. I'm going to make sure I fill this so it stays this color, but at least now I have roughly this blocked out mesh here. And if I ever need to adjust this and kind of like do a lot of changes, and the thickness is getting on my nerves, well, I can always just delete that poly group and then, you know, do what I want to do and then get that thickness back again. So for example here, like if I want to kind of move this stuff around and kind of make this more of a V-neck, it might be easier just to Control Shift click to isolate this poly group, delete hidden. That way I can just work on this poly group alone. I'm going to turn on double side so I can see this. But like, so for example here, I'm going to mask out this little point, and maybe I'll get my move brush and make this more of a V shape, right? Which would be easier to do without this the other row of faces behind it. You could of course do the move infinite depth, but you know, again, you can just move fewer points like that, get looking the way you want, and then extrude polygroup all again inward, and then flip it so it stays that way. And then, you know, you got that V-neck. So just be aware that you always have that option here. So that was a really quick way of using the split curve and Z-remesher to get that little V-neck shape here. And again, I don't really know exactly how close to the body it's going to need to be, because again, once he's posed, there's going to be a lot of changes to this. So again, this double-sided element to this right now, that's for the sake of having some thickness to it, but that might change pretty dramatically once he's posed. All right, so the one thing I want to do before I start posing and breaking symmetry is doing the hair and you know, and working on the face a little bit more, because the face obviously needs to have a little more going on. So just want to kind of roughly get the ear shape a little bit more refined, but mainly what I want to do is start blocking out the hair, because again, the hair can be a tedious thing, and if we can get started on that while symmetry is going to help us, then we'll be in better shape. So let's just go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start by actually just bringing in a cylinder. So I'm going to come up here to my subtool palette, I'm going to hit insert. Now you can use the curve alpha brush and all that kind of stuff. I've found that while I like the curve alpha brush and curve brushes in general, I don't love the topology I get. I feel like it's a lot more high density around instead of vertical, and it just becomes a pain. So I'm just going to actually make my own little basically cylindrical shape here. So I'm just going to get a cylinder. This is, as you can see, it's like this. It's got 12 or 16 around there. I'm going to go to about 20. And I'm just going to really quickly hold down control with my mass lasso here. I'm just going to kind of lasso out like every couple, every third, every second, just a few of these little guys. And then control tap to invert that. Go to my move tool, hold down Alt and scale that in the vertical so that I get everything but the vertical scaled in. That'll kind of give me that, you know, that kind of rough approximation there. I don't really love this, so I'm going to just going to do a better job of it here. I think I may have skipped a couple there, so let's just try that again. Okay, it's better. I want to have hard edges like this. Okay, and I'm going to go here to crease, and let's just go here to crease on the geometry. Crease tolerance 45 degrees, that should be enough. Let's see. Yeah, so it creases all those edges there. And now it's going to go here to my Z modeler brush. I'm going to insert multiple edge loops, keep polygroup, click and drag to get about that many, and then just do the same. That way I have plenty vertical here. Right now, these, of course, I don't want to have creased. So, and for some reason, they all came in creased. So I'm just going to go to crease, edge loop complete, and hold down Alt and just uncrease all these guys because I felt like I was getting creases. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. Well, now we're good. Anyway, let's go now, and I'm going to fill this with this dark blue color, which is kind of the color I want the hair to be. Fill it, and then make this longish like so. And let's get out of solo mode. Got a polyframe mode, and let's just move this up here so you can see how big this is. It's a little big, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm just gonna bring this down, and again, this is gonna be my starting point. I'm just gonna use this as a starting point for the piece, for the clumps of hair. I'm not really gonna go with this hairstyle. I'm gonna go with more of a up hairstyle here, but I'm gonna come up here and duplicate this and just keep this one unseen so I can come back to it if I need to. So basically, I'm just gonna kind of make this into a bunch of tufts of hair. So I'm going to go to my little gear and go to deformer. I'm going to keep 3 here. I'm going to mask out the bottom 2, scale this in a little bit like this, so I get this nice tapered look. Okay, maybe I'll mask out the middle, everything but the middle part, widen that a little bit here. So basically, I want to kind of have it get wider in the middle, and then kind of come to a point like this, right? So let's do a little bit of that, and that'll give me a nice little starting point. Okay, now I'm looking at this from the side. I'm going to kind of squash it in a little bit this direction here. And now I'm just going to hold down Alt and bring the move tool down here, right? And just kind of start moving some of these around. I'm going to be somewhat quick about this. I'm going to go to my gear and go to bend curve and give myself two of these little guys. And I'm just going to start doing some bends here like this, hit accept. And now I'm going to hold down Alt and bring it down here. And I do not have symmetry on, so I'm just going to start working at this from one side, and then just mirror it over. Now this one, I'm going to split this off. The reason being is I'm going to split off the ones on the sides that I can then, so I can just mirror just the side ones over, right? Let's scale this down a little bit, right? And just start blocking this roughly in. Don't really know exactly how this is going to look, but I think we can kind of get most of this to work. So let's kind of come here, go back to my bend curve, maybe give myself 5 here, and try and get this to kind of bend back a little bit, so it kind of like comes out and then back, right? Something like this. Go to my little gear, hit accept, and again, I go to my move brush and just adjust this a tiny bit, maybe even give it, I'm not going to smooth it, don't smooth it. It's tempting to smooth it, but don't smooth it, because you're going to lose all, you know, whatever resolution you might have had, you'll lose it. So I'm just going to get a little bit more of this. Okay. Get my move brush here. Now I'm going to get my move tool and hold down Option and just start dragging out a couple variation to this. Okay, go to move infinite depth so I can just move this whole thing and not have to worry about it. Right, something like so. then move, control, drag out another copy here, bring this down like that. Go back to my move infinite depth and kind of maybe swoop this up a little bit like so. And now let's go to one more of these little guys. I'll hold down Alt and hit my orientation arrow so I can kind of control drag out a copy and just have it wrap around like this. And this one obviously is a little bit different in terms of how it's going to wrap around, but I just want to have something like this. From up top here, I can just grab this whole thing and just move it around. Again, I'm still using move infinite depth here. I might smooth a little bit here. That part doesn't matter. I'm not going to see a lot of this back here because I'm going to bring in some more. But that'll kind of be a good starting point for that as well. All right, so now I'm going to go back to my center one here, and let's just duplicate that as well. So this is going to be what I use to kind of work on the back. Right, so kind of to bring hair up from the back, so right about here, and move infinite depth, so that'll work. I can also just go to my move tool and hit Y for the transpose tool and just kind of get that to work that way. It also works pretty nice, right? And you can again decide for yourself basically where this needs to go to be good enough for the back. And because I'm going to be mirroring this, I'm going to try and maybe have it right about there. Then control drag out a copy and then just adjust that a touch. Right. And again, I move infinite depth so I can just kind of push this around if I need to. Okay. Like that. Get my regular old move brush, clear that mask so I can pull that part out. Alright. I'm going to merge this down into the right side. Now let's hit mirror, make it a separate subtool so we get to both on the same side. And now I can just merge it down. So now I can hit symmetry. Now I don't know why I made it a separate subtool. I mean, if I was going to merge it down, what am I doing? But I don't know. But now I got something like this, and I can probably just get that to work. Let's bring this back here. Oh, let's go back to this guy. I'm going to move infinite depth. Maybe kind of push this back a touch. Grab this guy, rotate it back a little bit, right? Kind of like that. Got my move brush. I'm turning symmetry on so I can kind of bring this out in the front. Okay. So as you can see, pretty quickly you can just get a rough shape. I'm gonna mess with it probably a lot more once I get, once I get the pose going on. But this is really just a good way to get some of it blocked out. And again, I don't know for sure how much of that I might just kind of scale that down a little bit here so it's not quite so insanely high. As far as the middle part of this, really easily, I'm just going to go to my move tool here, turn symmetry off on my main little guy, control drag out a copy, swap this out for a polysphere, because this is just going to be the thing that fills this gap, which I can split off and just shape as much as I need to, just make it look like there's stuff in there basically. And for now, that's all it needs to do is just fill up space, right? Because we still have the blocked out hair to do most of the work for us. So a little bit of this, okay. I'm just going to kind of like scale this whole thing in. I'll hit X, turn symmetry off, and then scale this whole thing in from the side, and then turn symmetry back on so I can kind of pull it out where I need to. There you go. So that'll get us started, right? You can always tweak the shape. I just want to have something roughly in there, and then let's kind of pull this part down to get more of a sideburny thing happening here. Regular old move brush so I can kind of pull this out. And again, everything's just being blocked in right now for the sake of having hair where it needs to be. Just going to pop that out a little bit and do the same thing here. Again, I can always just go to inflate as well and just kind of expand that. But for now, I think this is going to be fine for the overall shape of the hair. Just going to get a little bit more of a point here. Okay, so this will work for now. Oops, sorry. Just got to do a little bit more of this. We're going to pull this part forward. That, the same thing here. Pull that part forward a little bit. Okay. Right now it's too clean. It's too fine. And again, that's going to change eventually. But I just want to have something there. Now, one of the things I want to do really quickly here, because this was kind of a stylized body, the proportions are a little bit different. I want to scale everything down from the neck up. I want to scale the head down, basically. So let's just go here really quickly to Transpose Master. And let's just do that. So I'm just going to scale down the head from pretty much the base of the skull. Invert my mask, go to my Move tool, center it, hold down Alt and bring it down to about here. I'm just going to scale this whole thing down a little bit here, kind of like that. I think that looks better and more in keeping with what we had before. So if I look at it before and after, here's after, and you know, here's before, right? Big head, smaller head, much better. So that's what I want to keep, and let's send this back. All right, I think this is much better. So now what I'm going to do is, at this point, I just want to come to the face and do a little bit of work on the face, because the eyes are really, really big, and they look kind of silly. So let's kind of bring the eye sockets out. Let's hit Shift F. You can see if I Control Shift click to isolate this and go to solo mode, you can see I do have polygroups that are kind of useful, but not exactly. So what I'm going to do is I want to isolate, get rid of that, hit Control W to make that its own polygroup. And now I want to add, let's bring everything back here. If I bring everything back, this is kind of here. Let's go back here. Right, okay, so let's actually maybe go here and get rid of these, make that a polygroup. Okay, so this is going to be my eyelid, basically. So I'm just going to kind of like grab this edge and maybe pull it out a little bit. Okay, this is going to be my eyelid, at least part of it. Control Shift Tap, bring everything back. I'm going to now bring back the eye so I can see it. And I need to make a few adjustments here as to, oops, as to where this is. Let's kind of bring this out. I'm holding down Alt, so that's why I keep accidentally grabbing stuff. I'm going to subdivide the eye so that I can kind of get a better feel for how it's going to look when I actually have this set up. I'm just going to kind of adjust this a little bit more. And now what I'm going to do is, let's see if I can do this. I'm going to go to my Z Modeler brush, hover over this edge, and go to Scale, Edge Loop Complete. Let's see if I scale this out. Just going to scale it up a little bit, and let's Control Shift Tap on this really fast. Isolate this. I want to just clean this up a little bit, so I'm going to mask it out, invert that mask, do a quick polish by features, and then with my Move tool from the side, just bring this forward. Actually, let's just clear that. And let's have symmetry on. Let's hover over this edge and let's go to Transpose, Edge Loop Complete. So it's going to mask out everything but that edge, and I can just kind of pull that edge forward a little bit, just a little bit, and now you can see where it is relative to the eyes. And the good thing is, because that Transpose masked out everything but that edge, I can kind of get in there and just move those points and those points only, which is good. Right, so clear my mask. I'm going to go back, I'm going to Control Shift Tap to bring everything back. Go here to my blue polygroup in this case, and let's just go to my Move tool and just push that back a little bit, because this is going to be behind the eyes. And now I want to give myself a little bit more to work with. So I'm going to go to my Z Modeler brush, hover over this edge, go to Insert. Let's bring another edge loop in there. Now I think I had set to insert multiple edge loops. Let's go back to single, so I can kind of work on that more easily. There we go, and now I want to scale that one up maybe a tiny bit, just like that, just so I can get a little bit more in there. But this is going to help, I think, with making the eyelids feel more like eyelids, right? So Control Shift Tap, I can isolate this. And again, what I'm going to do now is Control Shift S to kind of shrink my polygroup by 1. And then I'm just going to hide it to about here, Control W, make that its own polygroup. That way, again, if I need to, I can just kind of work on that. This kind of gives me something to work on a little bit more. So let's kind of bring that down like this, bring the brows down a little bit. I want to kind of bring the upper eyes down a little bit too, because he's kind of squinting a little bit here, right? Like that. Okay. Let's just see if we can get the hair to look a little bit better here. If I hit D for smooth, that feels better. Just to kind of get a feel for what's up here. But Okay. So as far as the head goes, just want to get that nose looking a little bit more pointy and a little bit less undefined. So it's going to bring that nose in a little bit more. Maybe get a little bit of a sneer there, so get the size of the nose up a little bit like this. And again, these are not the real teeth, these are just stand-in teeth, but there you go. And I want to get that neck to be a little bit more bulky there. All right, so I think looking at this now, the only thing we don't have, right, is the tail. We also don't have these little, like these parts of his boots. And these parts of these boots, these are the kinds of things that'll be good to do a symmetry on. So I think what we'll do next, before we pose him, is we'll get that set up. Again, I think that things like the tail, it makes more sense to add them with the curved brush while he's already in the pose, because that way we can kind of get it nice and curvy without having to worry about doing it after the fact. It doesn't really make sense to make a straight tail and then have to bend it. So what I'm going to do next is the little red parts, these little cover-up parts here over the tops of his boots and his gloves. So we're going to work on these little parts here, and again, this is just going to be something that you can mask and extract to get those shapes, these little red shapes here, or you can kind of build them. I'm going to try and build them, so I'm going to come here to the actual body here, and again, I'm just going to duplicate it, kind of the same way we did that little V-shaped thingy up here. And let's just go to Solo and Shift F. I'm just going to, before I do anything else, let's just fill this with red, so I can kind of, not be distracted by those colors. I'm going to Control Shift click and isolate just these parts for now, and let's just delete hidden, right? So what I want to do is get that rough shape in here, and again, you can do it a number of different ways. I'm going to just start kind of removing the parts I don't need. So probably these guys here, just make sure that I'm going to turn on, the double-sided is on, so I'll make sure I can see everything. So let's get rid of those. I don't need any of these. Probably not these either, right? So, okay, to delete it. So now, all I'm going to do really is notch out some faces. So I'm just going to kind of like, do something like this, and notch out maybe these guys up top here. I'll bring back this one. We might want that one. So I think that's kind of a good starting point. And then I'll just delete hidden again. And what I'm going to do is get my move brush and just pull this down a little bit here. I'm going to go to my Z modeler brush. I'm going to add an edge loop right around here so I can get my move brush and just start adjusting this shape a touch. And again, we're going to probably going to remesh this anyway, I'm guessing, but let's start. Now what I'm also going to do is actually going to get rid of these two guys here. So delete hidden. So I'm going to move this little point out here. So I'm roughing in the shape, right? I know I'm going to be doing some polishing here. Actually, let's get rid of these guys as well, because I'll get this part to come down probably. So delete hidden. Let's mask out these parts. I'm going back to my mask lasso here. For some reason it was off. And I want these little parts here, these little points to stay nice and sharp, and these little points to stay nice and sharp. Then I'll come and do a little polish by features, and it's polishing too much, so I'm going to mask out the parts of the actual mesh here, because I don't want this to shrink that much. I just want to kind of polish these areas out. So let's do a polish again, and you can see what I'm getting. So I think let's just do a little more masking. So I only want to polish that little area here. That's probably better. And now I can just start adjusting this a touch more. Okay, like this. And it's probably pretty good for what I'm going for. I'll probably need to adjust the overall height of this at some point. Something like that perhaps. Let's kind of move these up. I'm going to move this back a little bit. And again, I'm going to give this some thickness, so a lot of this might not matter a whole lot how far I'm pulling this out, but something like this. Now again, when I remesh this, it might go crazy because a low resolution mesh does get a little wonky. So let's just do something really fast here. Let's come up here to geometry, and let's hit divide. And I have smooth modifier on, which is kind of okay for this. And I'm also going to try to do a group loop. So let's go here to edge loop, go to group loops. I'm going to turn down polish to virtually nothing. I'm going to have like maybe like 1 or so. I'm going to have 1 loop, and then group loop. And you see what it does is it gives me a little bit of an outer edge, which is pretty good for what I'm going for here. I want to maybe adjust this a little bit. I'm going to mask that part out and then just kind of tweak this shape a touch. I don't think polish by feature is a good idea, but actually it's not that bad. I'm going to mask off the bottom part and then do a quick little polish by features just to kind of clean it up a little bit more. Actually, let's make sure I mask out these parts as well. Do a quick little polish. All right, that'll be fine. And now I can just go here to regroup. I'm going to remesh one more time. I'm going to turn on keep groups. I'm sorry. So I'm going to turn on keep groups, but I don't want it to smooth the groups at all, preferably. And it got a little bit weird there. Maybe a little smoothing the groups wouldn't be so bad. No, you definitely want to smooth the groups. Maybe detect edges helps. Yeah, it's all right. This is ugly, but it might be okay now. If I remesh one more time, it gave me a little bit better. So this is a little bit more workable, I think, in my opinion. And now I'm just going to hit Control W and make it all one poly group. Fill it with red, and I'm just going to come here and extrude the whole poly group, like so. Let's get out of solo mode so we can see what we're working with. And now if I hit Shift F, you can see this is where I am. Now I'm going to just really quickly, I'm just going to do a quick crease of poly groups just to see if that does what I need it to do, and it does. It pretty much does a good job of getting that shape. And again, you can kind of adjust this shape as much as you want to kind of make it conform to the overall reference that we're looking at here. But as a general rule anyway, this is not a bad way to start. Okay, so now I have these polygroups, and I crease the polygroups. I'm going to come up here to my crease menu and just do a little mini bevel, just to kind of give that edge a little bit of a, a little bit of an edge there. So if I hit D to kind of smooth this out, you can see we have a decent looking part there, which again we can adjust when we need to. But for the most part, I think that's going to work pretty well. So I'm going to do the exact same thing up here on the arm. So again, let's go back to the body. Duplicate the body, and I'm going to do kind of a similar aspect here. So solo this, go to poly frame, isolate just the parts that we want, which is right here. Okay, delete hidden. I'm going to probably need to add a few more points. This is actually pretty low res. So I delete my lower, so now I have a few more faces to work with. And again, it's just going to be the same kind of a thing here. I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to get rid of some of these. Might be easier actually to use my Z modeler brush and just kind of like hold down Alt and kind of basically select the faces I want to get rid of. Like that, right? So just kind of get rid of the ones that I want to get rid of that way, and then delete hidden. Obviously, I don't want this to go all the way across here, so let's kind of get rid of these faces here. Maybe we'll keep a couple of these, right? Kind of like this, and we'll keep those two as well. What the heck? Yeah, like that. And maybe we'll just go up one level here because that feels a little bit too low. Something like that, right? So we'll keep that. We'll delete hidden, and I'm going to do a little polish to kind of get that slightly more curved thing happening there. I don't really want that to be too curvy though, so let's grab these guys and keep them a little bit as well. There we go. Okay. Again, it's not perfectly straight, but it gets us in the ballpark, and we can just kind of adjust this a little bit. We're going to be doing a remesh anyway, so it's all good. So something like this is probably okay. Right, let's just see if we can remesh this with same. Who knows? Sometimes you get lucky, and that's actually not so bad. A little bit of weirdness right there, but I don't think it's going to matter. It's not really going to deform. So we can always just try and remesh again and see if we get a better result. I don't think that's a better result, so let's keep it like that. We can, again, sometimes it works to do that edge loop thing too. So I'm going to bring that polish again down to 0 maybe, and then just 1 or 2 loops like that, and then just remesh again. Sometimes that helps because it kind of gives you more of a border, but who knows. Actually, I can do that and keep groups as well, see if that helps. But make sure before you do, make sure you turn off smooth groups, because that's not a good idea. There you go. That's not good. So I'm just going to undo back to this. This is fine. Let's just go forward 1 here, and Let's just see about that the size down. I mean, it's alright, but I'm just going to keep it like this. It's fine. Make this all one poly group. Do a light little smooth here. You get some weirdness again because this is open. So let's just give this a little bit of extrude. So go here, extrude poly group all. Bring it out. And now again, this is a little bit weird. I'm going to see if I can just get rid of this edge loop here. So I'm going to hold down Alt with my insert edge loop and just get rid of that. And get my move tool and just literally just move these little points around because they just got a little bit weird around the edge here. Alright, that's a little bit better. Alright, so let's take a look here. Let's make sure this is red. Fill that. I'm just going to get my move brush and just move that out a little bit. And again, I already extruded it, so I'm not going to do an inflate because inflating on a two-sided thing is a little bit wonky. So I'm just going to kind of keep it like this and go from there. Again, adjust this as much as you see fit, but this is the rough approximation of how I'm going to do this. Something like that. Okay, now let's just go back to the body here. Let's just hit C to sample that white, throw some white in there, and go here, come on, invert, there you go, C to sample that, throw that in there. Alright, so now we can get a feel for what this is going to look like. Right, so he's got his little parts there. So most of the major parts are there. So now we can start thinking about posing the character. And again, anything that you might want to do that requires symmetry, you want to do first. So I'm going to do a couple more things. I'm going to give him eyebrows, and I'm going to I'm going to block in the actual teeth. So this actually starts looking like an actual person. All right, so first things first with regard to the face, let's go ahead and bring in some teeth. So I'm going to go up here to my subtool palette. I'm going to insert a shape. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to bring in a shape because I'm going to use an insert brush that has teeth on it. This is, I don't know where I got this. It's a toothbrush, but it's an insert teeth brush. So if I go up here to my light box and go to brush, I'm sure you can find it on Bad Kings or ZBrush Central or somewhere. Wherever brushes are sold. So I have my toothbrush here, and it's got individual teeth, but it's also got top teeth with gums and so forth. So I'm going to go top teeth and gums, go to my move tool with this little object selected here right in the center, and then just tap on this, right? It'll swap it out. So that way I know it's exactly where it needs to be, and I can just slide this into place. I'm going to turn off the original cylinder here and put this where it needs to be. And again, obviously there's going to be some adjustments here. There's going to be some adjustments to the teeth themselves. The size perhaps might need to be adjusted, but for now I just want to have the teeth there so I can start working with them. So something like that maybe, and then I'm going to come down to Control and just tap and drag to drag this out, split it off, and go to that one I split off, and then I'm going to come up here and find the bottom teeth with gums, which is this one, and it'll just swap that right out for me, and I can just put this where it needs to be. So kind of right here, just make sure it's centered, and do a little positioning here. Okay, and again, I don't know exactly what I want to do with these in terms of well, I want there to be a little bit of an opening in the mouth there, probably, because I don't think he's grinning so much as he's like, he's going to be acting, so he's going to be doing stuff. So it makes a certain degree of sense for him to have his mouth open to get some breath in there. So polyframe, it's all one thing. Let's go up here to auto groups. That way it's going to auto group them based on their topology, and I can just stop that. There you go. Mask that out, and I can just adjust this however I see fit by kind of grabbing the little teeth parts. And again, I can also just do that mask by polygroup thing, which is under masking, I believe. I'm going to mask by polygroup to 100%. That way I can just turn symmetry off here, and I can just get my move brush or whatever brush, and just whatever I select first will be the the tooth that it touches, because the rest of them are different polygroups. Okay, and do a quick little inflate to kind of make sure they kind of puff out a little bit, so that when I subdivide like this, Control D, they don't quite, they don't just kind of fall away. I want to make sure that before I do the inflate though, it's don't do that. Make my mask by polygroups back to 0 so I can just inflate across the board. Right, you can see like these teeth here are kind of they look like they're kind of like coming out. I don't know if they are, or if that's just kind of a visual thing, but definitely want to make sure that we don't have any openings here, because I believe these teeth are actually hollow. Like they don't have bottoms on them, so I definitely don't have to worry about that. I'm gonna have to do a close holes probably, but for now, let's just get ourselves some basic little teeth here. And again, because there are different polygroups, I can isolate them and throw in different colors. So I'm gonna throw that on there, invert the visibility here, and give him some teeth. Boom. All right. Now we got that. I'm going to do the same thing here on the top teeth, so I'm going to auto group them. Control Shift Tap on the gums, fill it with that color, invert, fill it with that color, and do the same thing here. So I'm going to go to inflate. I'm going to turn on the symmetry just for a second, give it a tight little inflate here, then Control D to dupe to subdivide, so that I get some smoothness on there. And again, we can just go back to, if we want, mask by polygroup. So I can start kind of grabbing these little guys, and because he's got kind of a fang thing happening, so we might as well start with that. And again, mask by polygroups here is really cool when you have auto groups, making each of these different guys their own separate polygroup. So I can kind of come in here and do that pretty easily. Right, do that mask, make sure nothing's masked out. And I might need to adjust this a little bit here. I'm going to go back and turn mask by polygroups off just for a second so that I can make some larger scale changes here to the overall positioning of the teeth. Okay, something like that. Let's go back to the head, or the body I should say, it's the whole thing. You can see here I want to kind of get in there and just throw some color in there, because it's a little bit disconcerting to see that kind of like blue interior of the mouth. So let's just do that really fast. Just throw some red. Again, it doesn't matter. We don't have enough faces for this to be anything good yet. But it just makes me feel better to have something a little less blue in there. All right. Anyway, so let's go back now. We have the main character here, the main body here. It's Control D once. Let's give him a little bit of resolution so that we can start doing little bits of kind of refinement here. I'm not going to get too crazy with this again until after I pose him. I do think still that it makes sense to do some to have him posed even before you do stuff like this, just because if it's too symmetrical, it just feels fake. So I'm just going to come in here and just do a little bit of, again, anything that you need symmetry for, like just basic shaping of stuff, then sure, do it with symmetry. And I'm saying that as if I know what basic shaping is supposed to look like, and I'm kind of winging it here to a certain extent. I don't pretend to know anatomy in any real way. I do my best, but who knows. I'm going to do a little inflate here around the lips. Standard to kind of like separate the nostril from the face a little bit more. Because again, remember too, whenever you are showing an emotion, whatever that emotion might be, you do that largely through deformation of the face, which means you're going to have a lot of wrinkles and stuff on the face. So just keep that in mind. Just trying to widen that mouth a little bit, but I might need to widen the teeth as well so that they kind of don't get lost in there. From the side, I think that maybe I just need to kind of give him a little bit more of a forehead. And again, he's still too low res for any kind of real definition of the ears and all that kind of stuff, but we're at least getting closer to a real looking face, I think. Push that in a little bit. I think the hair can stand to kind of come in a little bit too. Okay. Now, one last thing I'll do before I start posing really is just the one last thing I think I need symmetry for, which is the eyebrows. So I'm just going to go to my topology brush now. I think I can use it on him, even though, yeah. Okay, so I have the hair selected as my active subtool because the face is subdivided once, right? So, but I can still drag out the topology lines on here. So I want to see how I want to do this. I think I want to go wide and then narrow, maybe. and just crisscross this little guy here. Okay, let's just sample that color, tap, and split on mask points. So now we have these little eyebrow stand-ins here. Go to my move brush, turn off dynamic. I think dynamic was turned on for this, yeah. And you can see here it's very, very low res. So let's just subdivide once and then delete lower, and then I'm going to remesh with same. Again, remeshing with same and a low res object tends to kind of, at least in my experience, often give you some unpleasant results. So I just subdivided it once to kind of give it some more points to play with, and then the Z remesh does seem to do a little bit better. It's just, again, it's not a hard and fast rule, but it does seem to work better for me at least. So I'm just going to kind of really quickly just rough this in. Again, I just want to have something there. Make sure that's got that color on there. All right, so we don't have the tail yet, but I'm not going to do the tail until after I pose him, because I want to kind of put it already in the pose. And that's what we're going to do. I'm going to be posing him now. Again, posing obviously is a little bit of a trial and error process. It's a little bit of a tedious process as well. We're going to go here to, Z plugin, transpose master, and do a pose. Okay, so here's where I started, here's where I ended up. I even adjusted the hair a little bit on this guy. I wanted to kind of make the hair feel a little more flowy, even though I'm going to do some changes here. But again, I took him and kind of just gave him a little bit more of an interesting pose, and I had to do some smoothing out and so forth. Let's go ahead and send him back. Okay, so here he is, and again, I'm going to start doing some details on this guy. He is going to be holding a sword, and I believe in the reference pose, I didn't make this up for myself. I found the pose that's much like this and tried to copy it. He's kind of holding two swords, so I'm guessing he might be a double swordsman guy. I just don't know for sure, but I might end up giving him two swords if that's the way this this really seems to go. So what I want to do now is, again, this vest, you can see there's a lot of gaps in between here, and I'm going to go here to a lighter color really fast and go to the body and turn off the paint just so I can see a little bit better. After you pose, obviously there's a lot of adjustments to be made, some fixing to be done. That's kind of unavoidable. So what I want to do is go here to the body and adjust what I need to adjust, because I think by and large I want this vest to be pretty much like right on the body, like not this kind of loose fitting thing, which seems to be the case right now. So I'm just going to come in here and just like basically fill out these gaps. I can use an inflate brush for this as well, obviously, just to kind of build this up. But I do want him to kind of fill out this vest here. I don't want it to be like this really loose fitting thing. I want to kind of be essentially the profile or the silhouette of his actual body shape. So whatever I end up doing here, when I bulk out his legs and so forth, I might need to adjust the vest, or I might need to adjust the body, whatever works better in this case here. So I just want to come in here and just start making some adjustments, because I really hadn't done any real sculpting on his legs or his arms much in terms of actually like refining them or building them up, or even giving them any kind of definition whatsoever. And I was really kind of waiting until the pose to do that, because I just felt like whatever I did was probably going to get kind of messed up a little bit by the posing. So I'm just going to come in here and just do a little bit of adjustments here to where the muscle groups look like they are, keeping in mind that I'm not really what you would call an anatomical whiz. I just do what looks to the best of my ability, do what looks right. Lots of work to be done obviously on the hands and the feet. They're just there right now, but really what I'm looking to do is kind of get the overall deformations looking okay. There's like collapsing obviously when you mask and rotate and that kind of a thing, and that's going to be something that requires a little bit of adjustments. So just for the record, this is a normal part of the process, right? Like it's not going to be like, oh, I just moved it in the position and everything's fine. No, it's because it wasn't in that position initially. So when you bend things and move things around, it's not going to automatically do what muscles do. It's going to collapse. So again, you might just need to adjust the and that's another thing too. You want to kind of decide for yourself, what is the one doing what's in charge here? Is it the vest that's telling the body where to go, or is the body telling the vest where to go? Because you might need to adjust one or the other, like I said. So just a little bit of that first to kind of get a feel for what this looks like. This is still so low res. And now what I'm going to start doing is adjusting the actual, shaping of this, right? So the hand here, I kind of want the hand to be a little further back. This is one of those things where, because it's just the hand, I don't need to go back into Transpose Master. But I do need to get in here and start adjusting this a little bit. And for that, I'm going to need to start subdividing. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do, before I get too far ahead of myself here, I lost some of my polygroups here, so I'm going to just really quickly, oops, let's try that again. I'm going to really quickly make some polygroups for the fingers. It'll make it easier for me to isolate them as I work on them, right? So I'm just going to kind of like find a good camera angle here and hide those, and then invert my selection, Control-Shift-X to increase my visibility until I get to the end of that finger, Control-W to make that its own polygroup. And again, like you can do this a number of ways. You can also come here, for example, and use your Z modeler brush and go to Polygroup, Polyloop, and polygroup just that blue loop there, and then Control-Shift-X to grow, right, your visibility until you get what you need. Like say right here, Control-W. So now I have those things. And again, this is one of those things that you don't need to watch, obviously. But what I want to do is if I were to subdivide this right now, if I were to D, right, you kind of lose all of your, it gets very, very mushy. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to actually add edge loops on some of these little parts where the fingers bend to kind of keep that a little bit less, make it a little bit less mushy. Sometimes it's useful to do it that way. Now, this guy has subdivision levels on him, so I can't do that currently. So what I'm going to do is very simple. I'm going to go back to my lower subdivision level, and because I have these arm parts here, which can kind of are a nice little way to hide the separation, I'm actually going to go to my polyframe here, Control and Shift on Alt, and actually just kind of remove the forearms. This is actually going to be useful too, just to kind of be able to sculpt separate things and kind of keep things apart. So hit Split Hidden. And this one here, I can just hit Delete Higher, and I can close these holes up. Now you don't need to do this. You could just get rid of your subdivision levels, and so forth. But in my mind, I wanted this to be its own thing anyway, just because I can kind of work on the hand without having to worry about having to subdivide or the face or vice versa. And I'll probably end up doing the same thing on the other hand. So I'm just going to go back here to the actual body, and again, this has a low resolution, like really low resolution mesh, which is good, but I don't really need it, right? So I'm on my lower subdivision level again, and again, just going to see where my little arm piece is here, and cut it off right at that point, right? Making sure it's nice and clean here. Cool. Now I'll hit Split Hidden. And now I can close this up. I'm going to go up one subdivision level here, because I did do some sculpting on the face that I just assumed not lose, and it's still pretty low res. So I'm just going to hit Delete Lower, and now I can come in here and just close those holes. I can either hit Close Holes or just use my Close Convex Hole, which I prefer to do just because it's a little bit better topologically speaking. Let's kind of isolate these. Control W, make them their own polygroup, because I can still make UVs out of this, right? It's still low res enough that I could, but that's good enough right there. And I can now basically fill this with the right color and be good to go. So now I can go to the arm here. I can go to both hands, right? I'm going to close that up as well. Boom. Oh, this one's still subdivision level, so just Delete Higher. Close that up, right? Fill it. So now I can kind of work on these different hands separately. You don't need to worry about that. Okay, so this is just my way of kind of like trying to consolidate the things that I want to work on separately, because I do think I'm going to go to my Z modeler brush here, and I want to hit Insert some edge loops on either side of the parts that I kind of want to bend and not have it be quite so, like when I subdivide this, I don't want to have to worry about it being completely mushy everywhere. Now this is just my personal approach. Sometimes when I'm doing this and the hands feel a little mushy, I just don't want to have to worry about that. I think that I put them on the wrong one. So it's on this knuckle right here, and this knuckle, and then this knuckle. And this is just, like I said, it's just my my approach sometimes to doing this kind of thing. So now, and I can also, so now if I hit Control D to subdivide, again, it just kind of gives me a little bit of a visual indication too of where I want to kind of like focus. in terms of where the finger parts are. And I can just actually, I like to use polygroups as a way of isolating the parts that I want to work on, because very often I want to kind of mask out. So Control W, I'm going to kind of get rid of those, and then get rid of these, and then I'm going to mask out basically these different polygroups so I can kind of inflate on either side. It'll make sense when you see it, I think. So Control W. So now, for example, here, if I want to work on these fingertips here, I'll just isolate those and then mask it out, bring everything else back, invert that mask. Now, if I want to, I can just come in here and just inflate, you know, underneath here, and just kind of get these little fingertips to kind of be a little bit more noticeable. Now I can Control Tab to invert this, and I can actually grow my mask a little bit if I want to, just to kind of maintain a certain indentation there. So I'll just go to my masking and just go to grow, and then sharpen, and then sharpen. Then I can come in here and again and just inflate these as well. So just to kind of like just build this up a little bit, so you kind of get that little, you know, I can mask that out, and then inflate this part as well. So you can just kind of like slowly build up these different parts of the fingers, just so that they kind of like have that nice little separation that you might want. I'm gonna get like the little mini knuckles in here. And because I have those extra edges, they'll just kind of retain that shape a little bit more. They won't be quite so bubbly, quite so like, you know, limp noodly, right? So that's just the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to kind of come in here and just build up these little knuckles, and use the polygroups slash edge loops to kind of help separate those and keep them, you know, keep them together. So I can just go here, Control Shift X as much as I need to, mask it out, bring everything else back, invert that mask. That way I can just shape this into whatever I want while I'm looking at it here, and can, you know, in the context of everything else. So I'm just going to come in here and just shape these little fingers a touch. You don't need to watch every single one of these, but I'm going to go ahead and do that for both these fingers and the thumb. And with the magic of editing, we're all done. So again, I just did a little bit of an adjustment to the hands here. Made the feet a little bit more adjusted too. I didn't really go too crazy with the feet, but I just wanted to kind of shape them a little bit, and, you know, just to kind of give them a little more form here. So did a little bit of adjustment to the pose as well. And now what I want to do is the tail, because again, I mentioned before that I wanted to do the tail while while Nightcrawler was already in the pose, so that I can just draw it out. So I'm just going to kind of come in, draw it down, and kind of have it come almost like a little U shape coming back this way. So I'm going to sample that blue color and come here in the back with my curved tube brush. Now, curved brushes can be a little bit temperamental when it comes to like attaching to other objects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a plane that I can draw this on. So I'm just going to draw a plane up here, bring a plane up there, I should say, and kind of put it right where I want the tail to come from, which is going to be right about here, I think, in this little area. I'll make sure it's plenty big enough. I'm going to change the color of the plane and fill it. That way I can see the curve, you know, against it. And then let's come up here to my curved tube brush. So B, C, grab my curved tube. And I'm going to come up here to my stroke. I'm going to make a couple little changes here. I'm going to go to my curve, make sure that lock start is turned on. And I want to go to my curve modifiers. And I'm going to turn on my size modifier. I don't want it to get like to taper immediately. I want it to kind of stay mostly okay, and then kind of taper near the very end. So I don't know about exactly what I want to do here, but let's go ahead. I'm going to turn off the body just for a second, and a little bit too long. Like this. I'm going to turn the size way down, obviously. I'm going to go back up here and adjust this. This needs to stay longer it needs to stay wide for a lot longer. Something like this. Hit 6 a few times to smooth my curve. Doesn't seem like it's doing a lot of smoothing right now, so I'm just going to pull this a little bit. All right, and now I'm going to get my curve manipulator size and make this a lot longer. Sorry, a lot bigger, and something like this. I'm going to come up here to my stroke. I'm going to go to curve and turn on liquid for a second, so I can extend this a little bit, then turn liquid back off again. And just want to have this be a little bit more curvy, like this, right? And now I'm just going to make my draw size a little bit smaller, kind of make it come into the body a little bit more. Now I'm going to split I guess I could probably split this off now. I think it's okay. I'm going to split unmasked points, hide the plane, and bring the body back, and just make sure that this is exactly where I want it to go. So I think I'm going to rotate this back, rotate it a little bit like this, right? Something like that. I'm just going to lightly smooth it. Okay, and just make sure that this is the way I want this to look. I think that's all right. Might just swing this whole thing up a little bit here, like that. Smooth this whole thing down. I might also, let's just see, go to my side view here and just do a little bit of an adjustment. Okay, I think that's okay. If you need to, of course, I can always just scale the whole thing down a touch. And of course, when you scale it down, it'll get a little thinner, so I might just go back to inflate and just make it a little bit bigger. I think that'll work. Now I'm going to bring in the little pointy thing at the end. So just going to insert a sphere, not a sphere, a Q cube, and drag it out right here. Right. I'm going to split this off just for now, because I want to use my a deformer on here probably, and I'll go here and snap and replace this with a polycube, mostly because when I do that, it's going to be in line with my move tool, which is kind of what I need. So let's go ahead and squash this down like so, elongate it like yay, and now I'm going to just do a quick deformer with 2, mask out that part, scale this down like this. Okay, got my little gear. Accept, and now I'm just going to mask out these 2 rows of points, invert that, and just kind of bring this up a little bit. That need to now. I am going to make this more of a point, so I'm just going to go to my Z modeler brush here and just remove these edges just for a second, so I can just go here and taper and kind of scale this down without having to worry about the in-betweens. Right, like that. Now I'm going to clear my mask and move this down here and elongate this probably a touch, widen it maybe a little bit more as well. That's a little big. That's a little big. And let's bring this in so that it's actually in line with our tail. I'm going to polygroup these poly loops here, like that. And then I'm going to come here to geometry. I'm going to crease my polygroups. I'm going to knock down the crease level to something very low. Crease polygroups, and then just turn on bevel, and then just adjust the bevel width. So it'll bevel the creased edges a little bit. That just kind of gives me a little bit more to work with. I'm just trying to insert an edge loop here, guys. Alright, finally got to add a few in there, and now I got that. I need to get this a little bit sharper, so I need to add edge loops again. I must have undid that. There you go. Okay, fantastic. Let's get that same color on there. Boom. Okay, that will work, I think. And I'll go back to the tail and just adjust this a little bit so that it feels like it's more part of the tail there. There you go. There we go. So now we have our tail. Okay, so the main things really to work on in terms of actually creating new things are the swords. And we're going to do a little bit of sculpting on him, obviously, but let's create the swords here. So let's go come up here and just choose a different object, a whole different thing, just so I can start kind of without anything else being in the way, not having to hide anything. So I'm just going to come here and make this into a polymesh 3D. The main thing I'm going to do is the blade, and it's really kind of a cool looking blade. In this picture, which obviously is where I'm getting my pose from, I kind of like this blade look here, so I'm going to kind of make that as best I can. So let's go here with my move tool. I'm going to change this to a polycube, and let's go here to polyframe here. And obviously I need to have a bunch more vertical ones, kind of like this. I'm going to bring this down to 1 subdivision right here in the middle. And that should be okay. Now from the side here, I'm just going to bring this down to 1 as well. Okay, so there you go. Now I'll make this longish from the side view. Obviously I need to kind of make this a little bit shorter, not shorter, narrower. Right. So now again, like I could use a deformer. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to make this a lot bigger actually, and I'm just going to hide all the faces but the ones in the front and just delete them. That way I can just shape this with my move brush and not have to worry about you know, too much of the back and forth of that. So I'm just going to, this one here, this one little part here, I'm just going to use my move tool to adjust. But for the most part, I think I can actually get rid of, I can actually make most of this work. I'm actually going to get rid of this edge for now, and then I'll add that after I'm done. So again, just one less thing to worry about, right? So I'm going to come here with my move. I'm actually going to turn on the Z floor as well, so I can kind of see what I'm working with here. And obviously this is a little bit big, so it's just, so I don't know why I prefer to have the grid on for this. It kind of helps me get a feel for what's straight and what's not. So I want this to kind of come out like this and then kind of come back down in here, and then I'm going to have this come back out a little bit like this. I'm going to mask out this side here. I want to make sure this does not go anywhere. Let's mask out this whole side here, and then let's just bring this part in. And I think what I need to do now is mask that part out. I'm going to kind of scale that up. I want this to be a little bit further up. Let's actually just do all of this. Scale this up a little bit, right? And then maybe scale this back a little bit. I'm going to add an edge loop right there so that I can adjust this a little bit. But I think I didn't have the proportions looking great. And before I move anything, let's just make sure the whole left side doesn't go anywhere, because I want to make sure that stays nice and straight. Right, so I'm just going to kind of have this slowly come out, and what I'm going to do is grab this part and bring this back down to about here. Go back to my Z modeler brush and add an edge loop so I can kind of pull that out like that. So that's kind of what I'm looking for here. Again, I want this edge, this line here to be exactly straight. So I'm gonna get my move tool with that everything but that line masked out, and just gonna go ahead and do that. So that should work roughly, right? So now I'm gonna come in here and add one edge loop because it does taper on the blade side here. Now let's hover over one of the faces and let's go to extrude polygroup all and make sure I actually extrude it to about, say, here. And now I'm just going to make a polygroup out of not the whole rim here, not the whole ring, but just this side. So I'm going to narrow this down. That's where the blade gets sharper. So I'm going to move tool, make sure I hit the centering button here, and then I'm going to scale this in like so. So now when I bring everything back, you see it's kind of scaled in a little bit, right? Again, it's a little bit weird up here, so I'm just going to mask that part out and make that whole thing a little bit more pointy, but I think that's okay. And now I'm going to come here and make sure this edge stays nice and sharp. So I'm going to insert edge loops on either side. You could also just do a crease. For some reason I just don't do creases as often as I should. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing down here for this edge here. Right. I'm going to come down here and make sure that this edge stays nice and sharp as well. Like so, you might want to kind of check when you smooth when you subdivide this to smooth it. If you want certain edges, like this one for example, to stay pretty sharp, you might need to kind of prop up those edges either with creases or with edge loops. So you can see here with it smooth, it looks okay. So I'm going to come up here and just choose a grayish color, maybe a metal material I should say, something like this. Maybe make this a little bit darker, maybe a little bit, almost a hint of blue in that. Might be kind of cool, like that. Go to MRGB and fill. Okay, so that's a cool looking blade. I need to make a handle. I'm just going to really quickly adjust that a touch. handle I'm not going to get too insane with because it really doesn't look like it's overly complicated, at least in that setup here. So let's just go here and insert a cylinder. This is going to be the handle part. So I'm just going to go back to my blade and make sure this is centered so that I don't have to worry about lining up everything. So I just hit the home button for that. I'm going to give this a generally brownish tint. Okay, make it somewhat handle-ish. I'm going to bring it to right about there. We're going to have a hilt in between here, so if it looks a little silly, that's probably going to change eventually. Something like this. I'm going to go here to my deformer, just widen that middle part, invert that, and narrow these parts up a little bit, just to kind of give it a little bit of that little handle feel. Obviously, as you can see here, it's not quite centered with the sword. All right, so now the actual handle part is actually kind of like a C shape. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to insert a cube and bring this down right about here, scale this down like so. I'm going to swap this out for a polycube, and I want to adjust this. Remember, I changed this for the sword, so in this case I don't really want any of that. I want this to be just the most generic cube ever, so I don't really need much in the way of subdivisions. So again, just going to, you can see here, I'm just trying to get a feel here for where this needs to go. Okay, something like that. Now what I'm going to do is hold down Control and drag out a copy of this and bring this down here, then unmask that. And now I'm going to, and again, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm going to come here and see if I can bridge these two polys. I don't think this is going to work, but we'll see. It does, but there's no way for me to adjust that. So let's just first, let's delete these two, and let's see if I can bridge two holes. And I think with two holes I can do spline. I think I can do interactive curvature. Yeah, so let's just grab this little edge and this little edge, and if I drag my brush I get that nice little curvature, which is what I'm going for. That's cool. Okay, I'm going to adjust this a little bit. I'm going to bevel and see if I can just bevel this edge a little bit, just to kind of smooth that transition into that a little bit more. There we go. Alright, so now let's just Control W to mask it, to group this whole thing. I'm going to poly group this whole poly loop, so I get that nice poly loop going all the way around. I'm going to come here to geometry, going to go to crease, poly groups, crease level of like say 1 or 2. Let's just say 1 for now. Crease PG, turn on bevel, and obviously adjust that bevel width quite a bit. But now if I hit D, see again, it's all right, but it's not perfect. I might make my crease level 2. And I'm also going to come up here and add an edge loop right around this. Come on, and edge loop right around here, so that if I do subdivide this or what have you, I don't need to worry about that getting too soft. And even though I have creases, you know how I don't tend to trust them. So there we go. Right, so now I have that looking. I keep hitting it by mistake. Okay, right. So I think that will work. I'm just going to crunch it in a little bit here, and then just got to put a little thing at the bottom here, right? So I'm going to go my move tool, Control drag out a copy of this. I'm just going to put a polysphere. I don't think this needs to be anything amazing. Make sure it's kind of centered-ish. Going to narrow this in a little bit, and I think that'll just be fine. I'm going to go here and really quickly give this kind of a nice little color there. Control tap to invert. Actually, I think that's probably going to be a similar color. Just going to maybe make it a little bit less. Okay, something like, actually, I'm going to make it a little bit lighter, just so it stands out against there a little bit. Yeah, and then let's go to the handle. Make that brownish basic material like that. Again, just to have something. Ideally, you know, you can come in here and do some details on the handle here, which I'm going to do. because why not? This is coming here again. Still got Z modeler active. I'm going to insert an edge loop here and up top here. I just want to make sure this stays nice and sharp if I were to subdivide this. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start grabbing rows of polygroups, rows of like every 2 rows basically, and making that a polygroup like so. Okay, and now I'm going to grab this and I'm going to hide the top and the bottom. Control W, make that a polygroup. So I want basically every other row like this its own polygroup. And now I'm just going to, I guess I don't really need to do that, but I'm going to. Let's go to bevel. I'm just going to bevel this a little bit, and bevel, and then bevel. So I'm just going to add a little spacing in between these polygroups. And now I can come here on this polygroup, all of these. Okay, come on guys. Up and drag, go away and go away, right? There we go. Control W. So these are all one polygroup now. And now I can just come here and extrude that polygroup. I said extrude that polygroup. There we go. Now ideally what I should do is bevel that, but if I just hit D, you can see I get a nice little padded thing happening there. So I think I'm just going to leave it like that instead of going in there and beveling everything, which is crazy. So now I'm going to merge visible. So I have a version of this which is all merged together. Let's go back to my Nightcrawler, and I need to bring in 2 swords. Now I don't think both swords in the picture that I'm using as my reference are exactly the same. However, I don't care. I like these. I like this sword better. I'm going to hit D to smooth this out a little bit. Let's bring this down to where the handle is going to be. And let's put this in his left hand. I don't know if you noticed, guys, this is a little big, so I'm going to need to kind of scale this down. And I need to adjust this because let's just duplicate this before I forget and go back to this one before I rotated it right there. I'm going to hide that because that's for the other hand. This hand, the blade is, well, actually, you know what? I can do it for both of these, so I'm an idiot. So again, as you can see, the handle part here is let's just do an auto group. This little handle part here is exactly in the wrong place. It's facing exactly the wrong direction, and you know, we really can't be too surprised about that. Of course it is. So I'm just going to hold down Shift and rotate this 180 degrees, and now we're good. Let's isolate the handle. And let's just make sure this is centered within there. I think it pretty much is. I just wanted to kind of double check. It just feels like it was a little off, so but it's not. I don't think. That's fine. All right. Anyway, now I can put this where it needs to go. So I need to have the little hilt or whatever that thing is called facing the right direction. And again, like, I can adjust the blade and stuff independently, so I'm just going to scale the handle down so it matches the hand. Right. I can adjust the fist as well if I need to make it tighter. And then I'll just Control Shift Tap to isolate the sword, mask it out, invert that mask, and scale this bad boy up so it's the length it needs to be. And just make sure it fits in there nicely. Scale this up a little bit this way, maybe scale it up a little bit this way as well. Just want this to be a little bit bigger. Okay, now I'm just going to duplicate this, swing it over, and pop that right into his hand, assuming that it goes. Let's try that again. I missed it. I miss it a lot when I do that. Okay, let's try that. Okay, there we go. It's getting there. It's getting there. Let's slide it forward a little bit. Boom. Now one thing I might try is let's just go here and let's tempt fate a little bit here. Maybe I want to give this a little bend. I think this kind of looks cool like that. Just do a little bit of a bend to this. It's almost like motion blur in a sense, right? Like it's swinging, you know. All right, so I think that will work okay. So most everything is done and kind of like, you know, put in here. It just needs to be, you know, detailed. But the one last thing in terms of actually adding to him is on the vest here. I want to have the vest have a little bit more going on. You can see here in this reference image, we have some kind of cuts here across, and I kind of want to add those in here. So I'm going to use my slice curve and polygroups for that. So it's going to be a little bit tricky because I can't use mirror and weld and symmetry, so I'm going to try and do this as best I could. So let's go ahead and solo this vest here. I'm going to duplicate it, so I have one left over in case I mess something up. And there's different polygroups. So I'm just going to Control-Shift-Click to isolate this outer group here, and I'm also going to just kind of hide the back half. So I'm going to go to my select lasso here and just Control-Shift-Alt and just hide the back half of this, so that theoretically anyway, the slice curve will not go through and cause problems for the topology of the back, right? So let's just see if this actually works. You never know. I could also just, you know, start from scratch, but let's just try this. So now I'll make sure I haven't subdivided this, and I haven't, which is good. So let's go here to my slice curve, and the first thing I want to do actually is I want to be able to do one side at a time without it going through. So let's go ahead and hide this other half as well. I don't think I need to hide the whole thing, really. Just well, maybe I will. Who cares? Let's just do this. All right. So there we go. Hit Control W, make its own polygroup. Okay. So now what I want to do is my slice curve. I want to kind of come across and make a polygroup here. Make a polygroup there, and there's one that kind of comes up this way. Actually, I think this one needs to come down a little bit less. There you go. Okay, so and then I need to go back to my select rectangle for really fast because I want to make these two polygroups one polygroup here because I want to keep that together. So basically that's what I want. I want those polygroups. So I'm going to try and do the same thing over here as best I can. So I'm going to isolate this because I'm stupid and forgot to polygroup the other side. I have to do it this way. All right, there we go. So now hit Control W. That way I can kind of see what's going on really fast. So I can just isolate this group again like so. All right, so let's go back to my slice curve, and let's just kind of come around this way. All right, now again, I just want to kind of take a look at where we started with this, so I can get a nice, somewhat symmetrical thing going on here. And let's just come through here and let's see if I can do that. All right. So that works just fine. So that's really what I want to do, right? So let's see if we can remesh this. We might not be able to, but we'll see. I think that actually might be a better result. So let's just go back here to my crease polygroups again. And let's see if this will work now. I'm going to subdivide this again a couple times, and then let's see if I can mask polygroup border here and see if that works. It looks a little bit better, I think. So now I'm going to go to my mask. I'm going to shrink the mask a little bit. I guess I can't shrink the mask. Let's sharpen that mask a little bit. There you go. And now what I want to do basically is just run a little bit of an inflate. So I'm going to go here to inflate, but I actually want to go inflate balloon. So let's go here to deformation and go to inflate balloon a little bit. Now before I do that, let's actually make sure that certain other, the actual other polygroups here, the interior ones, these little rims, that they're all masked off. I don't want to actually inflate anything but these front parts here. So I'm just going to do a quick little, and you know what, I don't even want to inflate this back part, just these little panels here. Let me try inflate balloon now. I'm just going to type in 1. It's probably pretty good, maybe 1 more. So I think that'll give me some pretty good starting points here. I want this to be a bit more of a vinyl looking thing, so I'm going to go to a more shiny material and just increase the diffuse on it so that it doesn't get too dark. Something like that. Okay, let's just fill that. I'm going to do it while I have that material active. I'm going to fill the little leg parts and the arm parts as well, right? So now I can go back to my basic material and we're good to go. So I wanted to have him have a little bit more of a shiny thing here. And here, did not realize that was there. I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot, but let's just do a quick masking of the edges here and just smooth that part out. Because who needs that? Okay, there we go. So now we have this roughly blocked in. I just wanted to have a little bit of that on there. I might even come back in with like a seam brush to kind of make this feel a little bit more, like material. But I think what I'm going to do now, because most of everything is here, I'm just going to do a bit of a time lapse where I go through and do some detail work. Okay, so quick little time lapse. I'm not finished him by a long shot in terms of like, you know, the overall sketch detailing I'd like to do, but for the most part, again, we're on our way to kind of having a finished guy for the sake of the 2-hour one anyway. So let's take a look at how we can kind of make this overall appearance feel a little bit more interesting. So what I want to do is, one of the reasons I didn't do much on the back here is because I want to actually give him what amounts to a base that's going to be mountable to a wall. So I want to have him bamfing through the wall. So I'm going to have a little purple portal essentially coming behind him here. It's basically going to be a bit of smoke, right? Like a big puffy smoke with some kind of little, you know, streaks of clouds and smoky stuff coming out. So really fast, let's just kind of start with this. We're going to move kind of quickly here and see how this works. See if it works for us, I should say. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a sphere to our background here. It doesn't really matter a whole lot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to swap this out for a polysphere so it doesn't have that pole at the top of it. And this is going to be the cloud, the big puff, from which the BAMF things are going to be kind of, you know, exploding, right? So I'm just going to kind of make this somewhat like this. I'm going to scale this up a little bit. I'm going to find a nice little purple color for it. Fill that. I'm going to just for now anyway, I'm just going to kind of like just make some inflates, some big little puffies here just to kind of get us started with the shape. Again, I'm going to kind of build this from a bunch of different conical type stuff where like BAMF bits of brimstone smoke stuff is going to be flying out. So let's just get that where it needs to be roughly. I'm going to probably scale it down in that direction just a little bit. It's only 24,000. I'm going to delete lower so that I can use a deformer if I need to. So I want to kind of like elongate this maybe and kind of make it a little bit more like this. Get my little gear, I'll accept that. I want this to almost kind of like becoming, almost like be like coming like almost like it's bending around him a little bit, kind of like that. Okay, and I'm just gonna again just get in here with my inflate brush and just do a couple of little more smokies here, just to kind of get a feel for it. I'm gonna come back probably and adjust it some more, but for now I just want this to kind of feel like that. And again, this is going to be going against the wall, so this is actually going to be flattened, really. So, but for now, I'll just leave it like that. Okay. And now, what I want to do is I want to use a couple of little BAMF-y things happening here, little cone-shaped bits of like smoke that are flying out. And again, like I don't know for sure exactly where I'm going to end up with this, like whether I want to get it more like tendril-y kind of a thing, where it's kind of like this, right? Like, you know, maybe I'll even get the spiral brush involved. You know, something like this, boom, right? So you can get like snake hook and kind of, you know, do a little of this, and then go back to the spiral brush and, you know, try and right, something along those lines. Certainly like a plausible thing to do. Kind of like the idea of that. All right, but what I really want to do is I'm just going to do a couple more of those actually, because I do kind of like that, but I don't want to get too bogged down in this. So I'm just going to kind of bring this out, then go back to my spiral brush. Here it is. All right. So again, just going to I actually want to bring this down a little bit. I don't want to lose sight of my cool swords. Okay, so just gonna do that. All right. So anyway, still gonna do this, I swear, at some point. All right. So let's kind of start with the little conical stuff. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring a cylinder in, right? And I'm going to use nano mesh to try and get some random shapes from this. So I don't want a cone, I want a cylinder. And I'm going to go here and give myself a nice even distribution of faces here, something like this. Gizmo. I'm going to actually get rid of all those faces. I don't really want anything from there. Delete hidden. I'm going to turn on double sided so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to go to a deformer again and just literally scale this down to almost a point, something like this. Okay, and again, I want to add a few more edge loops here. I do want these to be fairly evenly spaced because I'm going to be putting nanomesh on here, and nanomesh is going to basically go in the on the faces. So I want the faces to be somewhat evenly, to be somewhat evenly spaced. All right, so let's just see how this works. So here we go. We got this space, this little cone shaped thing here, and scale it down a little bit. I'm going to move the pivot point of this down to the base here so I can kind of have it coming back a little bit. I'm going to drag out a couple copies here, I think. And maybe one here as well. Now again, this is being done in great haste for the sake of the 2 hour, two-hour thing, but nothing saying that this should not take longer. This should not be a longer ordeal to look really cool. And I'll just bring one more down here. All right, so now we have this, and what I'm going to do with these, like I said, is I'm going to, well, first of all, I have to make that actually attach to the smoky stuff. All right, so let's just see how this works. So now I'm going to go here to my insert mesh brush, insert primitives, choose my little sphere. I'm gonna go to brush and come up here to create nano mesh brush, right? So now this is a nano mesh brush, and I'm going to choose a somewhat lower res sphere, is tetrasphere maybe? I don't know, who cares? And let's kind of hover over this face and insert nano mesh all polygons. So now I'm just going to tap and drag and get a bunch of these guys like this, right? Now it looks ridiculous. I'm going to come over here to my nano mesh, not array mesh, nano mesh, and I'm going to make sure it fits. I'm sorry, it fills, proportion. I'm going to go here to random distribution, so I get some randomization going on here. And then I want to have some variation, obviously, in the height. I'm just going to change some randomization here. I'm going to increase the size. And then let's make this a little bit more random here, kind of like this. And maybe a little bit more random. Maybe these. Okay. Now let's go to the width here, and I'm going to oops, keep that at 1. Let's go to width variation, and I'm going to type in. Oh, okay. I can't do any of that. I have to do the width first. So let's go to 2, 2, 2, and then I'm going to do the width variation of 1, 1. Nope, I have to make it something else. So like this, something like this. So I'm going to type in -41 for both of them, for all of them, because that's what I got the first time. Now I can move the size down, and I'll get some good random stuff happening here. Right. And these other ones aren't really helping much, so. And I want to get that Z offset back down here because I don't want that to be anywhere. And maybe I'll just keep everything at 2. And I can also just play around a little bit too with the distribution until I get something I think looks cool. I don't want it to be too much. Something like that's actually probably pretty decent. Let's go to 0.085 and 0.08 maybe. There you go. That's cool. So let's just go to inventory and choose one to mesh, right? So now they're all part of that. And now I'm going to fuse them all together, right? So I'm going to try and use Dynamesh for this. We'll see how it works. It actually works pretty well. I'm just going to maybe increase the resolution a little bit. There you go. And now I can just come in here and just get some cool little boom, like that, right? I could also do, if I wanted to, just to, let's make sure I fill this with a color before I go away from it. Fill object. There you go. Make sure I do a nice little smooth. Oh, geez. Make sure I do a nice little smoothing on here so it actually looks decent. Okay, turn off Dynamesh now. And again, the actual cloud part here, I could also do that a little bit too. So let's just see here. Let's go back down to level 1 here, and let's remesh this with a target count of say 2,000. Okay, nice low res here ish. And let's just see about using that same brush. It might not work, but we'll give it a shot. So let's come over here and just drag out some spheres. Right, again, we're going to do same idea. Come here, nano mesh, and we're going to do some random distribution. So we're going to get some of this. We're going to really crank up the size. Right, turn down the distribution a little bit. Now we're going to do the same thing. Make the width 2, 2, 2. And now we're going to knock down the variation. Maybe we'll go at -40. That was kind of what we did before-ish, right? Okay, and then we can just turn the size down. So we get the same type of thing happening here. And let's turn off the offset a little bit. Right? Just try some randomness here. Again, I like that. So one to mesh, fantastic. Turn on Dynamesh here, and there you go. So now we have some pretty cool little smoky stuff happening here, right? And as with everything else, obviously you can adjust this as much as you need to. I kind of want this to, again, be kind of like a cradle for him. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to bring this forward a little bit and then kind of angle it back. Turn on my little select more than one subtool thing and just kind of make it more just for that. So now we get this cool little BAMF thing happening, right? I'm going to make sure I fill that color with this. And there's one more thing I want to do. I'm going to, let's go ahead and combine these two. So I'm going to merge those down. Now, ideally, they should be all one thing. So I'm going to dynamize them if I can. It's going to increase my resolution a little bit more so I don't see too much of an issue between everything. There we go. And that's, again, fill it with that color. And now what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to go and switch that color. I'm going to sample this color and go to a slightly darker one like this. Fill that. Then switch back to the top one and go to my trim dynamic. Turn off Z sub, turn on RGB, knock it down by a little bit. And again, trim dynamic is designed to kind of find the high points and, you know, knock them down in a sculpting way. But you can do it for painting too, right? So just turn on trim dynamic, turn off the Z sub, and lower the intensity of the color, but turn on RGB, and then you'll get some really cool, like, you know, it's almost like you're dry brushing hitting across the top there. This one here got a little bit weird, so let's just do a little bit of that. Okay, but so yeah, you get some really cool effects that way, I think. Let's go back to my trim dynamic brush a little bit here and kind of bring a little bit more of that in there. We can make this even a little bit brighter in certain areas, right? And again, if you want to get really contrasty, you know, obviously holding down the Alt key will do the opposite. It'll hit the recessed areas. So if I come in here and switch my color back to this dark one, make it even darker, and then switch it back, now I can just hold down Alt and it'll darken those recessed areas, and it just kind of adds some really cool contrast, right? Kind of like that. So there we go. So here we have the final render with Nightcrawler, and again, I think it worked out pretty well for a 2-hour sculpt. There's plenty more to do. There's a lot of detail to be done, obviously, in the outfit and the face and all that kind of stuff. But for a 2-hour sculpt, we got most of the stuff that we needed to get done there. So hopefully this was helpful.